Hi guys, my name is Chris Fontaine. I work for the HIV/AIDS program of the United Nations, which is known as UNAIDS. And I'm here to talk to you about the Millennium Development Goal 6, which is to halt and begin to reverse the HIV/AIDS epidemic by 2015. And so the first question that I want to discuss with you is, why does HIV/AIDS, among 8 Millennium Development Goals, why is one focused on just one disease? HIV/AIDS is actually the 4th largest killer according to the World Food Program. The first is lower respiratory infections, basically really bad colds, heart disease, and diarrhea. So those all kill more. So why are we worrying so much about HIV/AIDS? Why do we have a UN AIDS, but we don't have a UN heart disease or a UN heart attack? And the answer, and I'll come back to it in a little at the end, is really because the HIV has a huge social dynamic to it, and also that really HIV is affecting the poorest countries of the world much more than the richer countries, and that's why it is of particular interest to those of us who work in development. So that's the first lesson. I said we'll end on that point as well. The second question is, okay, well, so how do we do our work? How do we tackle this virus? And UNAIDS, who I work for, we are the sort of global coordinators of what we call the response or the fight against HIV. So we work with everyone we can, and we're always encouraging more to join. We are also essentially the global monitors. We take all the data we can find and we try to make sense of what's going on, what's being done, and then what the virus is doing. And lastly, we're fundraisers. So we're there to convince donor countries and donors themselves to give money to this cause. And that's really the next step. So we have big donors. We have the Global Fund to Fight HIV/AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, which countries and private citizens such as yourself can donate money to. We have the World Bank. We have a huge US program. Maybe from my perspective, the best thing that President Bush ever did, my president that is, was to start a huge HIV/AIDS program. And other countries, both developed and also middle-income countries like Brazil. I mean, governments do a huge amount on HIV/AIDS, and Brazil is perhaps one of the most remarkable among the middle-income countries. I mean, think of public health facilities, hospitals, health centers. They're obviously all doing a big part of it. In schools, such as your own, teaching people how to protect themselves against infection. And then there are non-governmental organizations that are often filling the gaps, doing the things that the governments maybe don't like to do. For example, working with prostitutes or gay men. And then churches, civil society organizations, the whole gamut. We're really trying to involve anyone we can. So the third question is, how are we doing? How are we doing? Okay, and I want you to think a little bit about what MDG 6 says, the Millennium Development Goal. It says to halt and begin to reverse the spread of HIV. So it's really about stopping infections. It's about what we call prevention. But then there's another element as well that since 2000 has become more and more important, and that's about treatment. That's about, after people are infected with killer disease, how can we extend their lives? And around the mid-90s, the drugs were discovered that basically allow people infected with the virus to live normal lives. And thanks to massive civil society activism, in both, especially in Southern Africa, and also in the United States and other countries, and Brazil. And in fact, in Brazil, you play a special role because there are a lot of generic drug manufacturers in Brazil. But basically, the cost of treating someone has plummeted in recent years. And what I want to show you is what really the effect of that has been. And so this is a graphic that shows where we are on treatment. We had our first big goal on treatment was from WHO, the World Health Organization, and they set a goal, sort of a sub-MDG goal, to treat 3 million people with HIV by 2005. And then in 2006, after we failed to reach that goal, we had another goal, which was to give universal access to treatment by 2010. So here's where we are. In 2000, here, we were treating about 300,000 people. And you can see there's first a slow increase, and then right here is where the 3x5 program came in. And we have this really dramatic upswing here to 2007, where now we're treating about 3 million, it's probably a little bit more, every year. So, good news, right? Well, there's another side of it, and I'm going to put it here. And this is people in need of treatment. This is where we are right now. Now it doesn't really seem like such good news, does it? I mean, it's about 10 million people need treatment. We're treating 3. So we're at about a third. It used to be a lot worse. So anyway, so that's picture number 1. It's still it's a big result for us, but it's not where we need to be. So back to prevention, back to the MDG. Halting and beginning to reverse the spread of the epidemic by 2015. Unfortunately, this graph shows not as dramatic a story as treatment. This is the number of new HIV infections a year going from 1990 to 2007. As you can see, really when we started to get really worried about the virus, if you can imagine if I extended this off the chart, we would be looking at what would be a dramatic increase in infections that peaks around the mid-90s. And essentially what we have right now here is this really gradual, kind of essentially nothing, it's stable. We've got the same amount of new infections every year, stable for a while. And then we've got this nice little dip here at the end. And I mean, what I would call this dip is hope. Is that this could be really good news, but it's too early to tell. Without getting into the details of the data, if we look at the confidence bounds of these numbers, we're really not sure if that's good news yet, but it could be good news. But still, I mean, think of the first graph where essentially treatment's going up, and number of new infections a year is essentially stable. And essentially what that means is that, if you can imagine, the same amount of people are being infected every year, and more people are in treatment. So what does that do? What it really does, and this is where the third thing I want to show you, is